Captain Hayes sat in the command chair of the stellar horizon, watching the endless stream of data flow across his screens. The ship was humanity's pride, a vessel built to explore the deep corners of space where no human had ever been. 3 years of exploration had shown them wonders beyond imagination. Colorful nebulae floated in the darkness like paintings in a gallery. Stars were born from clouds of gas and dust. The universe revealed its secrets to those brave enough to seek them. Hayes was 62 years old, with gray hair and a face marked by the years of duty. He had commanded ships for 40 years and had never lost a single crew member to careless mistakes. He believed in preparation, in knowing every system of his ship, and in trusting his people to do their jobs well. Today was supposed to be an ordinary day. The stellar horizon was charting a nebula called the Crimson Veil, mapping its composition and searching for rare elements that could help Earth develop new technologies. Dr. Foster sat at the science station, her eyes fixed on the scanner data. She was a woman in her early 50s, with a calm manner that made everyone around her feel confident. She had studied alien life for her entire career, though she had never actually met another intelligent species. The thought excited her and scared her at the same time. She knew that meeting aliens would change everything humanity understood about the universe. Lieutenant Porter controlled the tactical systems. He was younger, only 38, but he had the sharpness of a military officer who took his job seriously. His job was to keep the ship safe, to watch for dangers, and to respond if anything threatened the crew. He ran his scans automatically every 10 minutes, a habit that had become second nature to him. Today, like most days, those scans showed nothing but empty space and the swirling gases of the nebula. At 14:32 hours, everything changed. The alarms began to sound. Red lights flooded the bridge. Lieutenant Porter's voice cut through the noise with the discipline of training. "Captain, we have 3 massive contacts appearing at bearing 245 Mark 15. They just came through from nowhere. I mean, they just appeared from a dimensional rift. The rift is closing." Hayes was on his feet instantly. On screen, full magnification. The flickered and 3 enormous ships filled the display. They were nothing like human vessels. These ships were built for war. Their hulls were dark gray, covered with what looked like weapons emplacements. They were easily 5 times the size of the stellar horizon. A chill ran through Hayes's body. He had studied alien ship designs from images and data. He recognized these vessels. They were collective warships. Every human knew the stories. A few years ago, human long-range sensors had picked up signs of these beings. They had conquered dozens of star systems. They destroyed civilizations that resisted them. The Galactic Council, an organization of alien species that had existed for thousands of years, had warned humanity to stay away from space. Nobody had expected them to come to human space. Nobody had expected them to show up here, so far from their known territory. "Red alert," Hayes commanded, and his crew moved with the efficiency of trained professionals. "All hands to battle stations. Dr. Foster, I want everything you can gather on those ships. Porter, charge defensive shields and ready weapons." Before anyone could respond, a communication signal came through. The voice that spoke was unlike anything any human on the bridge had ever heard. It was layered, as if multiple voices were speaking at once, each vibrating at slightly different frequencies. The message came through perfectly translated by their computers, but the effect was still unsettling. "I am commander of the collective. I speak to the primitive species known as humans. You occupy space that the collective now claims as part of our expansion. You are ordered to evacuate all human territory within 48 hours. Failure to comply will result in the complete destruction of your species. You have no capability to resist. We have destroyed hundreds of civilizations far more advanced than your own. Surrender is the only option that allows any of your people to survive." The message ended. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship systems. Hayes felt anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. Emotion would not help his crew. He needed to think clearly. He needed to make the decision that would determine if any of them would see home again. "Get me Earth Command," he said calmly. "Priority Alpha emergency signal." "Captain," Foster said, her voice shaking slightly, "according to our database, those ships carry firepower equivalent to 50 of our largest vessels. We cannot fight them." "I know," Hayes replied. He looked at each member of his bridge crew. "But we can think, we can adapt, and we can show them that humans do not fold when threatened." Porter looked at the captain with new respect. "What do you want us to do?" "First, move us into the deepest part of the nebula. Use the electromagnetic interference to mask our position. Second, I want every system running. Shields at maximum, weapons charged. We are going to make sure they know we are not easy prey. The communication from Earth came through after 3 minutes. Admiral Lisa appeared on the screen. She was a woman in her 70s, with the bearing of someone who had spent her entire life in the military. She listened as Hayes explained the situation, his voice steady and factual. When he finished, took a moment before speaking. Captain, I am sending reinforcements, but they will not arrive for 5 days. You need to keep that ship intact and your crew alive until then. Can you do that? Hayes looked at his crew. He saw fear on some faces, but he also saw determination. We will keep them occupied, Admiral. We will not give them an easy victory. Human space is our home. We do not abandon it. Then do what you must, Captain. And Hayes, one more thing, make them bleed. Show them the stellar horizon shook violently as the first energy beam struck its shields. The impact sent crew members stumbling across the bridge. Captain Hayes gripped the arms of his command chair, his jaw tight as he watched the shield indicators drop. 20% damage already, and the had only fired once. Evasive maneuver Delta 7, Hayes commanded. Use the nebula cloud as cover. Porter, return fire on the lead ship, but do not commit fully. I want them to think we are weaker than we are. The ship banked sharply, diving deeper into the swirling gases of the Crimson Veil. The nebula was their advantage. The ships were massive, built for open space combat. They were slower, less able to navigate the complex currents of ionized gas. The stellar horizon, by contrast, was built for science and exploration. It was fast, agile, and its computer systems could predict the nebula's electromagnetic patterns. 3 human missiles launched from the weapons pod. They struck the shields of the lead ship, causing minimal damage but forcing the alien vessel to adjust course. Hayes saw the reaction he wanted. The commander did not expect any resistance at all. The alien ships paused, as if surprised that the humans were actually fighting back. Dr. Foster worked frantically at her station, analyzing the vessel design. Her hands moved across the keyboard with purpose, pulling data from sensors and running analysis programs. Behind her, the science team watched the displays showing composition, power signatures, and weapon systems. Foster's voice came out clear and focused. Captain, I have preliminary readings on their ship design. They use a centralized power core for their weapons. If we could disable that system, the ships would lose most of their firepower. How do we do that? Hayes asked, knowing the answer would be complicated. We would need to hit them with multiple strikes in sequence, Foster explained. Their shields regenerate every 2.3 seconds. We would need to coordinate our attacks to get through their defenses in that window. Hayes nodded and turned to Porter. Can you do that? Porter did not hesitate. Yes, sir, but I will need precise targeting data. We will only get one shot at this. Then we give them a reason to keep their attention on us while you prepare, Hayes said. He opened a channel to the crew throughout the ship. All hands, this is the captain. We are engaging the vessels. I know you are scared. I am not going to lie to you and say this is not dangerous. But I am telling you this. Humans have survived worse than this. We come from a world where everything wants to kill us. We have learned to think faster and adapt quicker than anything else in the galaxy. They have conquered through strength alone. We are going to beat them with brains. Trust your training, trust each other. And trust me when I say we will see home again. The message went out to every corner of the ship. In the engineering section, Chief Brown heard the captain's words and felt the weight lift slightly from his shoulders. His job was to keep the engines running and the shields powered. He pushed the reactor to levels he had never pushed it before, watching the temperature gauges climb. In the medical bay, Dr. Sarah prepared for casualties. She had joined the military medical corps because she believed in helping people. She had never expected to use that training in actual combat. But as she heard the explosions vibrate through the ship's hull, she knew that her work was about to become very real. She positioned her team and waited. The ships came at them again, this time with more aggression. Multiple energy beams crisscrossed the space where the stellar horizon had been only seconds before. Hayes had anticipated their movement and ordered another evasive maneuver. The ship dove beneath a thick section of nebula gas where the sensors could not follow effectively. Commander stood in the command chamber of his lead ship, watching the battle unfold on the display screen. He had conquered hundreds of civilizations. Not one of them had done anything like this. The humans were unpredictable. They did not flee. They did not hide and await destruction. They fought back, and they did it with a cunning that surprised him. His tactical officers looked confused, as if they did not know how to respond to an enemy that did not follow the expected patterns of warfare. "Change strategy," commanded. "Focus all weapons on their estimated position. Destroy them through overwhelming firepower." The three ships concentrated their fire on one section of the nebula. Energy blasts lit up the gas cloud in brilliant explosions. For a moment, it seemed as though nothing could survive such an assault. But then the stellar horizon emerged from a different section, moving perpendicular to where they had expected. The human ship was damaged, with sections of its hull exposed, but it was still moving, still fighting. Hayes could feel his ship dying around him. Explosions echoed through the corridors. He heard reports of damage spreading across multiple sections. But he also heard something else in his crew's voices: determination. They were hurt, but they would not break. "Dr. Foster, do you have the targeting data?" Hayes asked. "I have it, sir. The power core will be vulnerable in approximately 90 seconds. We need to position ourselves 3,000 kilometers north of their current position." "Porter, get us there. Full speed. Shields to rear, we will take hits on the way." The stellar horizon accelerated. The ship groaned under the strain. Power systems overloaded and had to be rerouted. Chief Brown in engineering pushed the reactor even harder, knowing that if it failed now, the entire crew would die. His team worked beside him, making repairs even as new damage occurred, racing against the clock. The human ship moved into position. The unprepared for such maneuvering had not adjusted their formation. This was the moment. "Fire all weapons," Hayes commanded. The stellar horizon unleashed everything it had. Multiple missiles and energy weapons struck the lead ship in rapid succession. The first volley broke through their shields. The second volley hit the power core directly. The ship exploded in a ball of fire, its systems catastrophically damaged. An eerie silence fell over the bridge of the stellar horizon. They had destroyed a warship. It was impossible. They had never lost a ship in combat. The other two vessels stopped their advance momentarily, as if reassessing the situation. Captain Hayes took a deep breath. They had bought time. They had proven that humans could fig. The human reinforcement fleet came into view like a beacon of hope emerging from the darkness. Captain Grant stood on the bridge of the Aurora Dawn, a ship nearly as large as the warships themselves. 6 human warships had been dispatched from Earth, each one carrying advanced weapons systems and experienced crews. Grant was 65 years old, with short black hair and a reputation for brilliant tactical thinking. She had studied every recorded battle in human history and understood something that most military officers missed. Victory came not from having the biggest weapons, but from understanding your enemy better than they understood themselves. The communication channel crackled with Hayes's voice. There was relief in his tone, but also weariness. The stellar horizon had sustained significant damage over the past 5 days. The crew was exhausted from constant fighting and repairs. 3 more crew members had been killed in the latest attack, and morale was fragile despite Hayes's steady leadership. "Welcome, Admiral Grant," Hayes said. "They are preparing for another major assault. Their 2 remaining warships are consolidating their position approximately 50,000 kilometers from our location. They seem to be planning a coordinated strike." Grant studied the tactical display in front of her, analyzing the positioning of both the human and vessels. She could see the advantage they held in raw firepower and ship size. But she could also see their weakness. They fought with predictability and strength, not with the kind of flexible thinking that humans had learned from their own violent history. "Captain Hayes, I want you to continue your current evasive pattern," Grant commanded. "Keep them focused on your ship. Do not engage them directly. Let them chase you while my fleet takes position behind them. They expect to fight us in open space. We are going to fight them in a place where their size becomes a weakness instead of a strength." Grant studied the nebula on her display. She recognized that the Crimson Veil was a complex environment with dense gas pockets, electromagnetic disturbances, and regions where sensors became unreliable. The ships were built for combat in clear space where their superior firepower could be fully deployed. In the nebula, they would be blind, slow, and vulnerable. Over the next 12 hours, Grant maneuvered her fleet into position. The ships moved with precision, each captain understanding their role in the greater strategy. 2 ships moved to the north, ready to cut off the retreat. 2 ships positioned themselves to the south. Grant's flagship and 1 support vessel would drive from the east, pushing the deeper into the nebula where the electromagnetic interference would blind them. Watch the human ships arriving on his sensor displays. The commander felt anger and confusion in equal measure. These humans were not acting like other species he had conquered. They were not surrendering. They were not even displaying the rational behavior of a species that recognized its own inferiority. Instead, they were fighting with a kind of purpose that did not fully understand. His tactical officer, a younger named, approached the command station. "Commander, the human fleet is moving into formation. Their positioning suggests they intend to coordinate a multi-directional attack. This is not typical of primitive species." Knew his officer was correct. Yet he had received orders from the High Council to eliminate human resistance or face replacement by a more aggressive commander. Had never failed in his duty. He did not intend to start now. "Advance to attack position," commanded. "I want both warships moving together. We will obliterate their fleet." The two warships began to move forward, their weapons charging. They did not know that every movement they made was being tracked and predicted by Captain Grant's tactical computers. They did not know that Grant had studied their battle patterns and found the flaw in their strategy. They did not know that Grant was about to teach them a lesson that would change how they viewed warfare forever. On the Aurora Dawn, Grant watched the final pieces fall into place. Her fleet was positioned perfectly. The ships were exactly where she wanted them. "All ships commence attack," Grant ordered. The human fleet struck from all directions at once. The two northern ships fired concentrated energy beams at the rear shields. The southern ships attacked their port side. Grant's flagship and support vessel came at them from directly ahead, preventing any retreat. The ships tried to rotate and face multiple threats simultaneously, but they could not move fast enough. Humans had learned through evolution and through centuries of warfare that you do not stand and fight against multiple enemies. You move. You adapt, you strike where they are weakest. The first warship's shields collapsed under the coordinated assault. Its hull was breached in multiple sections. Explosions rippled across its surface as the human weapons found their targets repeatedly. The second warship maneuvered desperately, trying to escape the killing zone, but Grant had anticipated this movement as well. The human ships cut off its escape route. Hayes watched from the stellar horizon, and for the first time in 5 days he smiled. Grant had done what seemed impossible. The unconquerable were being defeated. But Grant did not finish the destruction. As the second warship's shields flickered and failed, as its weapons systems went silent, Grant made a decision that would reshape the galaxy. Instead of delivering the final killing blow, she ordered all fire to cease. "Hail the ship," Grant commanded. The communication channel came alive with his voice. The commander sounded shocked, confused. In his entire life, he had never experienced anything like this. The humans had him surrounded. They could destroy him. Instead, they were calling him to communicate. "Commander," Grant said, her voice calm and clear. "Your ships are disabled. Your crews are dying. I could destroy you. But I am not going to. Instead, I am offering you a choice. You can surrender and your people will live. You can take your remaining ships and leave human space. Or you can try to fight again, and I promise you that your fleet will be annihilated, and you will die knowing that you sent thousands of your own people to pointless death." There was a long silence. Grant waited, knowing that this moment would define everything that came after. In that silence, Commander was experiencing something they had never experienced before, mercy from a more powerful opponent. Dr. Foster, watching from the stellar horizon, understood what Grant had done. She had not just won a battle. She had demonstrated something that would challenge everything they believed about their own superiority. His response came through the communication channel, his layered voice quiet. "I accept your terms, Captain Grant. We will withdraw. We will leave human space. But I wish to know why you spare us when you could destroy us." Grant took a moment before responding. "Because humans did not survive our own world by being stronger, the neutral station orbited a small moon on the edge of the Crimson Veil Nebula. It was the first place where humans and they agreed to meet for serious negotiations. The station was controlled by a neutral species called the Mediators, who had operated as peacekeepers in the galaxy for thousands of years. They were tall beings made of crystalline structures, and they did not possess weapons or military power. Instead, they possessed something far more valuable, the trust of all species. Captain Grant walked through the corridors of the station, heading toward the negotiation chamber. She carried no weapons, as the Mediators required of all parties entering their space. Behind her came Dr. Foster, the scientist who had studied since the moment they appeared in human space. Foster carried data on everything humanity had learned about the Empire during the 5 days of conflict. Commander waited in the negotiation chamber, standing with his 4 tactical officers. The commander was a striking figure. His body was tall and covered in gray skin that seemed almost metallic in the light. His eyes had 3 pupils each, and they could perceive light wavelengths that humans could not see. Despite his alien nature, there was something recognizably serious about his bearing. Had faced a defeat that shook his understanding of his own power. Now he was here to understand why. Grant extended her hand in the human gesture of greeting. Studied the hand for a moment, his 3 pupils contracting as he considered the meaning. Then he placed his own hand across Grant's palm. The contact was made. "Commander, I appreciate your willingness to meet," Grant said. They took seats across from each other at a long table. "My colleague, Dr. Foster, is here to help us understand each other better." Foster opened her data files and began to explain. She showed records of human history. She showed him footage of wars, famines, and disasters that had shaped human civilization. She showed him examples of human cooperation and sacrifice, instances where individual humans had given their lives so that others might survive. "They have conquered through superior military power," Foster explained. "But humans come from a world called Earth. It is a harsh world. Nearly every living thing on our planet has the ability to kill humans. We have learned to survive by thinking faster, adapting quicker, and working together. We have learned that the greatest strength comes not from defeating enemies, but from understanding them." Listened carefully. His 3 pupils shifted as he processed information that challenged everything his empire stood for. "You show me weakness," the commander said. "You show me that your species suffered, that you were prey, yet you say this is what makes you strong. This is what allowed you to defeat my warships." "That is correct," Grant confirmed. "When we fought you, we did not fight with the biggest weapons. We fought with intelligence and adaptation. We used the environment around us. We worked as a single unit even though our crew came from many different backgrounds and beliefs. That is human strength." "Why did you spare my life?" asked. This was the question that had haunted him since his ships retreated. "You had the power to destroy me. I would have done the same had the situation been reversed." Grant met his gaze directly. "Because destruction is easy. Any species with enough weapons can destroy. But building something new, creating peace where there was war, understanding an enemy instead of eliminating them, that takes real strength. They have conquered many worlds, Commander, but tell me, what is the result? Are your conquered territories peaceful? Do the species you have conquered work willingly with you? Or do they live in fear?" Did not answer immediately. He turned away and walked to a window that looked out at the stars. The silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of his thoughts. Finally spoke. "The conquered species live in fear, some rebel, we crush their rebellions, the cycle continues. Resources flow to but there is no peace. There is only obedience through force." "What if it could be different?" Foster asked gently. "What if instead of conquest there was cooperation? What if the shared knowledge with other species and received knowledge in return? The human philosophy is simple. I help you and you help me. We are stronger together than we are separate." "This is not how they operate," said. "Our High Council would never accept such a philosophy. They would see it as weakness." "They might," Grant acknowledged. "But you are the one who fought us. You are the one who survived. When you return to the High Council, you will tell them what happened. You will tell them that humans refused to surrender. You will tell them that humans defeated your warships not through greater strength, but through greater thinking. And you will tell them that you were shown mercy by a species that had the power to destroy you but chose compassion instead. That message, Commander, is more powerful than any weapon." Returned to the table. He looked at Grant with all 3 of his pupils focused directly on her face. "You are saying that humanity will change the Empire through this one action, through sparing my life?" "I am saying," Grant replied carefully, "that you will return home with a choice. You can tell the High Council that you lost a battle and they can send more ships to fight us. We will defeat them too. The cycle will repeat until so many have died that your empire collapses from the weight of pointless war. Or you can tell them what you have learned here. You can propose something revolutionary to your people, peace through cooperation instead of conquest through fear." Foster added, "Commander, I have studied your species from a distance. I believe that there are who question whether eternal war is truly the best path. Young who wonder if there could be something more. Give them a reason to hope. Show them that there is another way." Over the next several hours, negotiations continued. Grant and Foster proposed trade agreements where they could exchange advanced technologies with human developments in biology and adaptability. They proposed cultural exchanges where young could visit Earth and humans could learn about history. They proposed that the withdraw from the territories they had most recently conquered and instead govern those worlds cooperatively, giving them voice in their own destiny. Did not agree to everything immediately, but he agreed to something even more valuable. He agreed to present these ideas to the High Council. He agreed to argue, with all his authority as a military commander, that they should consider a different path. As the negotiations concluded, stood to leave, he paused at the door and turned back to face Grant one more time. "Captain, you have defeated me in battle and in ideology. This is not victory as I understand it, yet I sense that you have accomplished something far more significant. If my High Council accepts what I bring them, the consequences will reshape the entire galaxy. You have started something that cannot be stopped." Grant stood and inclined her head respectfully. "That is our hope, Commander. We do not want to defeat we want to join them in building something better. That is what humans do. We create, we adapt. We offer hope even when we have every reason to despair." Departed, and in his wake, Dr. Foster felt the weight of what had just occurred. They had not simply won a military victory. They had planted a seed of doubt and possibility in the mind of an enemy. Whether that seed would grow or whether it would be crushed remained to be seen. But in that moment, Foster understood something fundamental about her species. Humans had the capacity to change not just themselves, but the entire trajectory of galactic civilization. 6 months had passed since from human space. The stellar horizon hung in orbit above Earth, waiting to be brought to dock for repairs and refitting. Captain Hayes stood on the bridge one final time before disembarking. His crew had been through so much together, and now they would be scattered, sent to other ships, other duties, other corners of the galaxy. Hayes felt the weight of command lift from his shoulders as he prepared to hand over the ship to a new captain. The news from the territories had exceeded all expectations. Commander had indeed argued before the High Council for a change in their empire's direction. At first, the older members of the council resisted. They had spent centuries building the empire through conquest and fear. The idea of change seemed like weakness to them, but then something remarkable happened. The younger began to question the old ways. They had seen what humans could accomplish. They had seen that a smaller, less advanced species could defeat them through intelligence and determination. Young officers began to argue that perhaps the path of conquest was not the path to true strength. The debate had torn the collective nearly in half, but slowly, gradually, the reformers gained ground. Within 4 months, a new faction of they had taken control of the High Council, had been promoted to a diplomatic position. The first embassy opened on Earth, not as a military installation, but as a place for peaceful exchange. Scientists from both species began to work together on projects that neither could accomplish alone. Geneticists began to study human adaptability. Human engineers began to learn the secrets of propulsion systems that could move ships faster than humans had ever dreamed possible. Hayes received orders to report to Earth Command for a ceremony. He was to be commended for his actions during the crisis. But Hayes had always believed that it was not his actions alone that had saved humanity. It was his crew. It was Captain Grant. It was Dr. Foster and her willingness to see thee as something other than an enemy. It was Lieutenant Porter and Chief Brown and everyone who had refused to give up. The ceremony took place in the capital city of Earth, in a great hall that had been built centuries ago. Thousands of people filled the space. Scientists, soldiers, politicians, and ordinary citizens who had followed the story of the stellar horizons stand as it traveled across the news networks. Admiral Lisa presented Hayes with the highest honor humanity could give to a military officer. She placed a medal around his neck and spoke about his courage and leadership. But Hayes took the opportunity to redirect the attention. "I appreciate this honor," he said, his voice carrying through the assembly. "But I want everyone to understand something. What saved humanity was not one captain, or one crew, or one battle. What saved us was our refusal to accept that we were inferior. What saved us was our willingness to think in ways that our enemy could not imagine. What saved us was our choice to show mercy when we had the power to destroy. These are not qualities that belong to me alone. These are human qualities. They belong to all of us." In the audience, Dr. Foster sat with her research team. She was already planning new projects. They had shared information about a virus that had been devastating one of their worlds for decades. Foster believed that human immunology, developed through millions of years of fighting diseases on Earth, could help. She was putting together a team of the best human biologists to work with scientists. Science, she believed, could bridge divides that weapons could not. Young Ensign Winter, the crew member who had been wounded in the first battle, sat in the ceremony as well. He had recovered fully from his injuries. The doctors had told him he could continue his military career, but had made a different choice. He had requested a transfer to the new Exploration and Research Division. He wanted to explore the galaxy not as a warrior, but as a scientist. He had seen what cooperation could accomplish, and he wanted to be part of building that future. 3 days after the ceremony, Captain Grant visited Captain Hayes in his temporary quarters. The two officers had become friends through their shared experience. Grant brought a bottle of Earth liquor, something rare and valuable. They sat together watching the Earth rotate slowly beneath them. "You did something remarkable," Grant said. "You refused to retreat when anyone else would have run. You gave us the time we needed to prepare. You proved to the galaxy that humans do not break easily." Hayes shook his head. "I did what I thought was right. I refused to let my crew die without fighting back. But truthfully, Admiral, I wonder what would have happened if you had not arrived. I wonder if we would have lasted one more day." "Perhaps not," Grant agreed. "But that is not what matters. What matters is that you tried. What matters is that when they looked at the stellar horizon, they did not see easy prey. They saw resistance. They saw a species that valued itself enough to fight. That changed everything." Over the following months, the human cooperation deepened. The collective, under its new leadership, began to withdraw from recently conquered territories, offering those worlds the choice to govern themselves with support and guidance rather than domination. Some worlds took years to forgive for the conquest and oppression they had suffered. But slowly, a new order began to emerge in the galaxy. Species that had lived in fear began to recognize that the galaxy could be different. Commander made a final visit to Earth, 6 months after the initial retreat. He met with Captain Hayes aboard the stellar horizon one last time. The two commanders sat in Hayes's ready room, a space that had been the command center during the crisis that had changed everything. "Your species is remarkable," said his three pupils, studying Hayes carefully. "I have led my people for 40 years, I have commanded warships, I have conquered worlds. But you, Captain Hayes, you reminded me of something that I had forgotten. You reminded us that strength without wisdom is merely destruction, that power without purpose is merely waste." Hayes smiled. "Commander, your people are remarkable too. You were willing to listen. You were willing to change. That takes more courage than any battle." "The younger generation will change much," predicted. "They will make peace with the species we have oppressed. They will learn from humans how to be strong without being cruel. And they will understand that the greatest conquest is not of territory or of other species, but of oneself. This is what you have taught us." As prepared to leave, Hayes asked him one final question. "Commander, do you regret crossing into human space?" Paused at the door. "I regret the pain my arrival caused. I regret the crew members who died in the battles. I regret many things, but I do not regret the confrontation itself, because it gave my people the opportunity to change. It gave us the chance to become something greater than we were. If crossing into human space was necessary for that transformation, then I regret nothing." After left, Hayes stood alone on the bridge of the stellar horizon. The ship was damaged by battle, but it would be repaired, it would be refitted, and it would return to the stars, now as a symbol not of human military strength, but of human determination, human compassion, and human hope. Hayes transmitted a message to all human colonies and settlements throughout space. They came to test us. They came expecting to find a weak species that would fold under pressure. Instead, they found people who refused to give up. They found people who think faster, adapt quicker, and choose mercy over vengeance. To every human reading this message, remember that this is who we are. We do not retreat a second time because we never truly retreat. We advance toward our values, and the galaxy watches to see if those values are worth following. The message spread through human space and beyond. It reached the ears of species that had lived under oppression. It reached young who questioned the old ways. It reached explorers and scientists across the galaxy. And slowly, the message transformed into something larger, a belief that the galaxy could be different, that cooperation could replace conquest, and that strength truly meant the wisdom to choose compassion when you had the power to choose otherwise. Years later, historians would look back on this moment as the turning point. The day when one human captain refused to retreat. The day when one human fleet chose mercy over destruction. The day when humanity showed the galaxy that it was not inferior, not because of weapons or technology, but because of something far more powerful. The human spirit, unbreakable, adaptable, and endlessly hopeful. That had crossed into human space expecting to find easy prey. Instead, they had found themselves changed forever, and the galaxy would never be the same. Or faster, we survive because we learned that mercy is not weakness. It is a choice we make when we have the power to kill. We choose something different. If your people want to know how an inferior species defeated a superior one, the answer is not weapons or ships. The answer is that we never believed we were inferior. We believed in each other. We refused to break. And we showed mercy because that is something your empire, built on fear, can never understand. The warships began a slow, damaged retreat toward the dimensional rift through which they had entered human space. As they understood that his report to the High Council would not be a victory speech, it would be something far more dangerous to the way of life. It would be the beginning of doubt. And doubt, once planted, grows like a weed through an empire built entirely on certainty. Now they just had to survive for 5 more days until reinforcements arrived. Hayes looked at his crew, seeing the exhaustion and fear on their faces, but also seeing something else: hope. "All hands continue repairs," Hayes said quietly. "We have shown them we are not easy prey. Now we show them we can endure. Medical report on casualties." Doctor's voice came through the communication system. 12 crew members injured, Captain. No deaths. We got lucky with the bulkhead shielding." Hayes nodded to himself. 12 people hurt but alive. They had won this round. The war, however, was far from over. And in the darkness of space, with 2 warships regrouping in the distance, Hayes wondered what the next 5 days would bring. We are not the easy prey they think we are." The communication ended. His voice came through again over the communication system. "You have not answered. You have not evacuated. This is your final warning." Hayes leaned forward in his chair. His voice was quiet but carried the weight of a man who had made a decision that would echo across the galaxy. "Commander, this is Captain Hayes of the human vessel Stellar Horizon. We will not evacuate. This is our space. We will defend it with everything we have. Come and try to take it." The warships began to move. The first attack would begin in moments. Hayes closed his eyes for just 1 second, thinking of his family on Earth, hoping they would one day understand why he refused to run. Then he opened his eyes and faced forward. "All hands, this is the captain. We hold this position for humanity." The Stellar Horizon powered forward into the nebula, ready for war.